My name is Michael Henderson. I'm 62 years old, and for nearly 3 decades, I was the Chief Financial Officer of Mountain Ridge Manufacturing, one of the largest industrial companies in Denver. 30 years dedicating my life to spreadsheets, risk analysis, and decisions that moved millions of dollars. But my true passion was always my family. Sarah, my wife, and our children David and Jennifer were the center of my existence. Every bonus I received, every salary increase, I thought of them. First, when David wanted to pursue his MBA at Stanford, I paid the $120,000 without hesitation. When Jennifer decided to open that boutique in Beverly Hills, I financed the initial $300,000. For Sarah, there was no limit. Trips to Europe, the new Mercedes every year, our dream house in the hills. I was always a reserved, analytical man. At the company, they called me the silent calculator. My calm demeanor was my trademark. In the final months before retirement, however, something changed at home. Sarah seemed distant, always on the phone, whispering conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room. David and Jennifer started asking strange questions about inheritance, about my investments, about what would happen next. The day of my retirement party arrived. We organized something simple in our backyard, just family and a few close friends. I was genuinely happy thinking about the plans Sarah and I had made. Traveling across the country in our new RV, visiting the grandchildren we hope to have soon, maybe a small house in San Diego for the winter. It was in the middle of the party that everything collapsed. Sarah approached me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was carrying a manila envelope. "Michael," she said, her voice cold as ice, "I have a retirement gift for you." I opened the envelope. Divorce papers. My vision blurred. Irreconcilable differences. Division of assets. Alimony. Sarah leaned in and whispered, "I don't want to take care of a retired old man. Michael, you understand, right?" I looked at her, then at our guests. That's when I saw him. A man I didn't recognize was standing near the gate, watching with a smug smile. My eyes turned to David and Jennifer. They didn't seem surprised. They were exchanging glances as if they shared a secret. "You knew," was all I managed to say. David shrugged. "Dad, you have to understand our position. Mom deserves to be happy, and we need to think about the future, too." Jennifer nodded. "Your investments, the company, all of that is a lot to manage. Maybe it's better to leave it in better hands." In that moment, everything became clear. It wasn't about Sarah's happiness, it was about money, my money. They thought that at 62 I would be easy prey. The retired old man who would sign anything, who might even die conveniently in a few years, leaving them with the complete inheritance. But they didn't know Michael Henderson, the CFO. They only knew Michael Henderson, the dedicated husband and father. I folded the papers calmly and put them in my pocket. "All right," I said simply. The party continued, but I was mentally absent. They didn't know that in the last 5 years, following my instinct as an always cautious CFO, I had substantially diversified my investments. Offshore accounts, investment funds under other names, stocks in companies they didn't even dream existed. 3 days later, I signed the divorce papers. I divided the visible assets exactly as Colorado law required. Sarah kept the house, half of the joint accounts, the standard alimony. The children received some company shares and access to a fund I had created years before. They thought they had won the lottery. They didn't know they had just lost the game. The day after signing, I did something no one expected. I disappeared. I cancelled my phone, closed my social media accounts, and moved to a small cabin I bought hastily in rural Montana near Whitefish, a 10-acre property in the middle of nowhere. They tried to contact me constantly, desperate messages from Sarah about alimony details. David left messages asking about company funds. Jennifer was more direct, saying I couldn't just disappear. But I could, and I did exactly that. Summer, fall, winter. The seasons passed in absolute silence. While they searched for Michael Henderson, the hurt and betrayed man, I was transforming into something completely different. I set up a small office in the cabin. 3 monitors, satellite internet, and all the tools a professional investor needed. I started small: day trading, emerging market analysis, investments in tech startups. My advantage was obvious: 30 years reading financial statements, identifying solid companies. In 6 months, I had doubled my initial capital. In a year, I had tripled it. While others lost everything on risky investments, I built solid positions in companies with real fundamentals. But money was only part of the equation. The real project was Michael Henderson. 2.0. I began to take care of my health seriously. Gym every morning, hikes through Montana trails, balanced diet. At 63, I was in better shape than at 50. I let my beard grow, bought clothes I actually liked instead of those corporate suits. I learned to play guitar, something I always wanted to do but never had time, and it was on one of those morning walks that I met Elena. She ran a small bookstore in Whitefish, a 52-year-old woman with natural grey hair and a smile that lit up any room. Also, divorced, no children, but with a genuine passion for life I hadn't seen in years. Our first conversation lasted 3 hours, talking about books, travel, dreams we had abandoned. "You have an interesting energy," she told me on our 3rd date. "You seem like someone who went through something difficult, but came out stronger." Elena and I got married in a small courthouse after 8 months of dating. Nothing extravagant, just the 2 of us. 2 witnesses, and the certainty that we had found something real. 6 months later, we adopted Emma, an 8-year-old girl whose biological parents had lost custody. Watching Elena care for Emma, seeing the pure love in that child's eyes, showed me what I had lost, but also what I had gained. Meanwhile, my investments continued growing exponentially. 2 startups I financed were acquired by Silicon Valley giants. My stock portfolio generated monthly dividends that exceeded my former CFO's salary. I bought land, commercial properties, stakes in private equity funds. In 2 years, my fortune was greater than it had been during my entire marriage to Sarah. But most importantly, I was genuinely happy. Emma called me Dad without hesitation. Elena looked at me every morning as if I were the best part of her day. It was in the 2nd year of my new life that the first signal arrived. My lawyer in Denver called me. "Michael, your ex-wife is trying to locate me. She wants to renegotiate the alimony. She's facing financial difficulties." "And my children?" I asked. They also made contact. "David mentions problems with his business. Jennifer's boutique closed last year. She's asking for financial advice." I smiled for the first time in 2 years, thinking about my old family. "Mr. Peterson," I told my lawyer, "please inform them that Michael Henderson does not wish to be contacted. If they insist, take appropriate legal measures to guarantee my privacy. But Michael, they seem genuinely desperate." "I know," I responded calmly. "It's exactly as I planned." The following months brought a symphony of desperation that I observed from a distance. My lawyer became my source of information about the collapse of my old family. "Michael," he called me one winter morning, "your ex-wife Sarah is in serious trouble. Apparently the other man, Marcus, had revealed his true nature after my disappearance. He wasn't the successful businessman he pretended to be. He was a professional con artist who had identified Sarah as an easy mark. He convinced her to invest in his fictitious import company. $600,000 from the asset division, plus another $150,000 from the emergency fund. I left her. When Marcus disappeared with the money, Sarah discovered the company didn't even legally exist. She's living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Aurora now. She lost the house. She couldn't pay the mortgage without supplementary alimony. The alimony was another aspect of my careful planning. When I signed the divorce papers, my official income was only my base salary. All my substantial investments were structured through holdings and trusts that weren't considered regular income. That meant alimony was calculated on a much smaller base than Sarah expected. The investments she received were precisely those I knew were about to devalue. Mountain Ridge shares, for example. I knew the company faced problems that would become public only months after my divorce. The shares lost 60% of their value in the first year. And my children, I asked. Peterson sighed. David invested heavily in a cryptocurrency startup that promised to revolutionize digital payments. He put in almost everything. The money from asset division, a loan against his house, even his children's college fund. The company was a Ponzi scheme. He lost $1.2 million, and Jennifer, the boutique, went bankrupt. She expanded too quickly, opened 2 additional stores without sufficient capital. When the pandemic arrived, she was paying rent on 3 premium locations without enough income to cover costs. She has debts of approximately $600,000. They're looking for you more urgently now, Peterson continued. Sarah called my office 17 times last week. David sent a letter begging for a conversation. Jennifer is offering apologies and promising she'll never be part of any conspiracy against you again. Michael, they're really desperate. Sarah mentions declaring personal bankruptcy. David might lose his house. Jennifer is living with her mother in the Aurora apartment. I heard all of this while watching Elena and Emma playing in our backyard. Our new house, actually. A 500-acre ranch I bought the previous year, overlooking the Rocky Mountains. Emma was teaching Elena to ride horses in our small stable. Their laughter echoed through the valley. Mr. Peterson, I said finally, they can keep trying to contact me, but my position remains unchanged. Michael Henderson does not wish to communicate with those people. I understand, but what if they tried to locate you physically? Sarah mentioned hiring a private investigator. I smiled. They're welcome to try, but they'll discover that Michael Henderson from Denver no longer exists in public records. The man they're looking for disappeared 2 years ago. It was true. I had officially changed my residence to Montana, reorganized all my businesses through complex corporate structures. But Michael, they're your family. No, I responded, watching Emma run toward the house shouting, Dad, look what I learned. My family is here. Those people in Denver are just an expensive lesson I paid about trust and loyalty. It was a spring morning, exactly 2 years after my retirement party, that I decided to definitively close this chapter. Elena was making pancakes in the kitchen, while Emma practiced piano in the living room. Chopin resonated through the house. My phone rang. Mr. Peterson, once again. Michael, Sarah is in the hospital. My first reaction was nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no concern. Just emptiness where 3 decades of emotions used to exist. What happened? I asked. She had a severe anxiety attack. She's being treated for depression and extreme financial stress. David called my office crying, literally crying. He's asking for just 5 minutes with you. He says he needs guidance on how to save his family from complete bankruptcy. I looked at my own family. Elena smiled from the kitchen. Emma waved from the music room. 2 years ago, I was just a man who had dedicated his life to people who saw me as a walking ATM. Today I was a father, a husband, a mentor to Emma, a real partner to Elena. Mr. Peterson, I want you to send a letter to each of them. The same letter. I took a deep breath. Dear Sarah, David, and Jennifer, the man you discarded 2 years ago no longer exists. What remained did not forget. You judged me as a worthless, retired old man. You now discover how much that miscalculation cost. There will be no second chance, no reconciliation, no financial rescue. You made your decisions based on greed. Now live with the consequences. Sincerely, Michael Henderson. That's all, Peterson asked. No. Include a photo. That afternoon, Elena, Emma, and I posed for a professional photo in front of our house. Not the initial cabin, but the 500-acre property with a stone and wood mansion, panoramic mountain views, stables in the background, the Tesla parked in the driveway, and the small airplane I bought for our weekends. In the photo, I wore jeans and a denim shirt. Eleanor was radiant in a summer dress. Emma held our golden retriever, Duke. We were all genuinely smiling. On the back, I wrote, Henderson Family, Montana, 2024, built on love, not money. 3 weeks later, Peterson called again. Michael, your letter caused an impact. Sarah tried to call my office 46 times the first day. David sent a 12-page response that seemed more like a confession of guilt. Jennifer showed up personally at my office. What did she say? That you had won, that they finally understood it was never about money but about respect and loyalty. She wanted me to tell you they're proud of the man you became, but no, it's too late. She asked if you were really happy. When I showed her the photo, she stayed silent for almost 5 minutes. Then she said, he looks 20 years younger. I never saw him smile like that when he lived with us. Michael, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. Do you feel any satisfaction from their suffering? I considered the question carefully. Satisfaction, no. Relief, absolutely. For 2 years I carried the rage and betrayal like a stone in my chest. Today, that stone disappeared. Not because they're suffering, but because I built something better. Watching their collapse didn't bring me joy. It brought me closure. Proof that I had made the right decision. Is there any possibility you'll reconsider? Even though they were wrong, they're your biological family. Mr. Peterson, family isn't defined by DNA. It's defined by daily decisions of love, respect, and loyalty. Elena chooses to love me every morning. Emma chooses to call me Dad. That's family. Sarah, David, and Jennifer chose to see me as a financial resource to exploit. They chose to conspire against me. They chose to discard me when they thought I had no value. Those were also family decisions, just not the kind that builds, but the kind that destroys. 6 months later, I received a final update. Sarah had moved to a government-subsidized facility. David got a job as an accountant at a small company, slowly rebuilding but never recovering his previous standard of living. Jennifer went back to college at 42, studying to be an elementary school teacher. They survived. That was all I wanted to know. Today, 2 years after sending that letter, I wake up every morning in a house full of laughter, plans, and genuine love. Emma, now 15, is applying to universities with a full scholarship she earned through her own merit, because Elena and I taught her that real achievements come from effort, not inheritance. Elena expanded her bookstore to 3 Montana cities and is considering writing a novel. I, at 67, am happier than I ever imagined possible. My fortune continues to grow, but now it serves a different purpose. Not to impress or sustain people who see me as a means to an end, but to build a real legacy with people who love me for who I am, not for what I possess. Sometimes Elena asks me if I miss my previous life. I always respond, you can't miss something you never really had. The betrayal wasn't just the end of a marriage and family relationships. It was the birth of the real Michael Henderson. A man who learned that the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemies, but building a life so full that they become irrelevant. They taught me that love cannot be bought, but can be lost, that family isn't a right, but a privilege, and that sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't rage, but the indifference that comes from a genuinely well-lived life. If you like this story, give it a like, share it, and leave your comment. And if you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.